when we mean empowering leader, what that means.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think maybe to expand on that, I think of an empowered leader is you're empowering them not just to do a thing or execute a thing or plan a thing. You are also giving them the decision-making authority. So it's not just responsibility, it's also authority.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leading Smart podcast. I'm Holly Tate, joined by Tim Stevens. This is season 3 where we are leading in real time. We're still at home. That's amazing. That's not usual. You're
And
leaving, I think, soon, right, Tim? Like
I'm
tonight?
hoping to, I didn't tell you this, we are under a blizzard warning until 1 o'clock, so another 3 hours. And I'm supposed to fly at 3 o'clock. So we shall see. I've already been out snow blowing the driveway and the sidewalks once. I might have to do it again before we leave.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we're basically the same here in Houston, where
This
this
is when
morning.
you tell me how warm it is and how nice it is and how you're probably sitting out on your patio. Thank you.
Yeah, no, not, but no, it was 35-mile-per-hour winds this morning, which made it feel like 30 degrees, which that's pretty
Well,
crazy for Houston on
it
March
is.
16th.
That is crazy.
Also,
That's very
before we
cool.
jump into today's topic, I actually do want to hear because I meant to ask you this earlier and I forgot. Tell us about what is man on the street? How is TSA really at the airport right now? Because in the news, it looks like it's horrible and we all need to be there 4 hours before our flight leaves. Is that true or is it
I
not as
have
bad?
had 0 issues since all that kind of has been in the news. I've flown Chicago several times, Los Angeles twice, Cancun twice. I think maybe Orlando was in there once. So I have not had any issues at any airport.
Okay, that's good to know because we're going to both be at Exponential this week. My flight leaves at like 6 a.m. in the morning. So I was like, do I really need to be there at like 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You flying out of the airport I've heard the most about is Hobby, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's the one. I know. This is when you tell me I should fly United, blah, blah, blah.
Was I gonna say that?
Yes, you were.
Eh.
Okay, today we are going to be talking about the difference between an isolated leader and an empowering leader. Isolated leader and empowering leader. And this is kind of a new topic. This came up in one of your on-sites this last week. So we might kind of use different words as we unpack what we mean by this. But tell us, Tim, about the precipice of this topic.
The precipice? Like the top of the mountain?
Doesn't that mean the beginning? I'm going to
The
Google it.
the impetus?
Oh, that's probably what I mean.
The
Pre press. I don't even know how you spell precipice.
Precipice. What does it mean?
Ladies and gentlemen, do not use words that you think will make you sound smart with Tim Stevens because
Well, you
no
might be
one.
right. It's the English
Um,
language. There's lots of different definitions for
no,
different words.
you're right. Very steep, perpendicular, or overhanging and rise or fall, having precipit. Wait, precipit. Maybe this is the wrong word.
Precipitous.
Precipitous.
That's precipitous, yeah. Okay, but we can go on because I know what you meant, even though it's not what you said.
Thank goodness you knew what I meant. Precipice. I'm
I don't
still
think
trying to
I
figure
don't
out.
think we can move on because you have to solve this in your head first.
Is precipice even a word?
Yeah,
How do you spell it?
you were just looking it up.
Well, no, that was precipitous, whatever you said.
Do we need to start over, Holly?
No. I mean, I'm trying to Google the word that I said, and it's not coming up. Precipice.
We're gonna have someone listening that's gonna solve the mystery for us.
Okay, precipice. No, it still means the same thing. A very steep, sheer, or overhanging cliff. Which, this is what I'm great at, making things connect that don't seem like they do. Often in leadership, it can feel like you are standing on a precipice that is very steep and dangerous and not sure what it looks like to be a empowering leader or an isolated leader. So tell us about that, Tim.
Okay. So the conversation came, I was talking to a lead pastor at a large church, and they were talking about their lack of availability for a staff. This is a staff that probably has a couple hundred paid staff folks, large church again. And they were saying, is it bad to be disengaged? And my quick response to that was like, yes or no. I was like, maybe. It probably depends on what you mean by disengaged. And knowing this leader a bit and kind of young leader, but kind of what they're trying to build at their church is their desire is to push decisions down as far as they possibly can and empower people to make decisions at lower levels. And so my answer was like in that case, it's like being disengaged, meaning you're not as available. Maybe you're not at the lead team meetings and you have your chief of staff or your executive pastor that's leading those. So you're less available because you're focused on some things that you and only you can do. I think that's okay. If disengaged means isolated, means that you're going to be, what do we call that, Holly? The seagull management, the swoop and poop. And I've
Yep.
worked with leaders like that before where when they're there, they're just trying to like make decisions at every level and like everything needs to run through them. And then when then they're gone for a week or two or three, they're disengaged. But then they still want to come back in and run things and have everything run through them. So that kind of that swoop and poop. I'm going to swoop in and I'm going to like mess a bunch of things up and a lot of chaos and whatever. Then I'm going to swoop back out and the team has to figure it out when I'm gone. But when I'm there, they're relying on me to figure it out because it's my leadership. That's what I've conditioned the team to do. So it's to me, it's two different kinds of disengagement. And
Mm.
I think for second chair leaders, we need to know what kind of disengagement we're talking about. Am I supposed to, I remember telling my lead pastor, we were together for 20 years. I would say, I know how to run the organization when you're here. I know how to run the organization when you're not. What's very difficult for me is when you're in and out and in and out and in and out, and it changes by the minute or by the hour or by the day.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting to use the word disengaged there because when I think of disengaged, it's like an apathy. If I'm a disengaged leader, I don't really care. I am absent, like an absent leader. Whereas what I hear you say and what I would agree with is like an empowering leader is casting vision, setting clear expectation, setting direction and trusting and equipping the team to be able to rise to those expectations and that direction, but trusting that the team will get there. Another way that I think about it is if you're the bottleneck as a leader, like, and that's kind of the swoop and poop. It's like you swoop in and you become the bottleneck because now everything has to run through you, but you're not here. Like, and you are disengaged, you're not here, you're not responding to emails or text messages, or you're canceling meetings all the time. That's where I hear leaders, especially second chair leaders, get the most frustrated. It's like you say you want to be involved, we offer you the opportunity to be involved, and then you're not showing up, you're canceling things, you're not following through on commitments, and that would be disengaged versus empowering. So, yeah, I think they're very different.
Yeah, and I think the thing of like we both mentioned already is like you just kind of need to know. And I think teams that haven't figured that out or that don't know or that the senior leader's not self-aware enough to kind of know the impact of the swooping coming in and making a ton of decisions that the staff was making all along while they were there or while they weren't there.
Yes.
Makes it I mean, to me, that makes a huge difference. What happens is if that's not, like, defined, if you are the swoop and poop kind of leader, you're gonna end up with executors, with people on your team, second level leaders that are just gonna do what you say, and they're gonna hold things together when you're gone, and then when you come back in, they're just gonna do what you say, which is fine if that's what you want. I think it's gonna limit your growth, it's gonna limit the sustainability of the organization if you don't have leaders that actually high capacity, high level leaders that can make good decisions for the organization based on the values and the agreed upon beliefs and direction on your behalf when you're not there. And then you trust them to do that when you are there as well. And often they're not going to make the decision or sometimes that you would have made, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. What I have a question because we get this question a lot, which is which is interesting because you kind of got this question from a whole leadership team that are a mix of like the leader and, you know, integrators or second chair leaders. What if you're in that second chair seat, which a lot of our listeners are, and you have what you would consider a disengaged, truly disengaged senior leader that has the seagull leadership of swoop and poop? How do you have that conversation? Like, that was really bold for you to talk to your senior pastor and say, "Hey, I know how to lead when you're not here. I know how to lead when you're here, but what's really hard is when you're one foot in, one foot out." How do you even broach that conversation?
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's challenging. I think it's you're earning trust over time, and sometimes those conversations are going to go well, and sometimes they're not. And sometimes you start into the conversation, you realize this isn't the time for the conversation. I don't have their focus or attention, or it's just not the time. It's not going to go well, and so you sit on it and you wait. And I've led like for 2, 3, 4 years in that situation of knowing the swoop and poops thing's going to happen, and just trying to just kind of like as my leader's trying to help me with things, I'm trying to help them with things and, you know, help them understand who is it? I think it's Henry Cloud that talks about a lot. Most of us don't know what it's like to be on the other side of us.
Yes.
Um, and so I think you're trying to help them understand what it's like to be on the other side of them because they don't know what it's like when they're not there. They can only see what's happening and may not even be self aware enough to know what's happening when they are there. I think like one, people might be listening thinking, why would a leader be disengaged at all? That doesn't sound healthy. And I thought I'd just throw out maybe one scenario where I think it actually is fine and can be healthy. I've worked with lead pastors or churches where the lead pastor really they're like it's just I want to study the Bible and I want to preach God's word. And then the reason I have an executive pastor is I want someone to run the organization. I actually think that can be a healthy disengagement. That can be like
Mhm.
knowing and obviously if you have that standing with your board where where the board is like, great, that's what we hired you to do. We want you to preach and really, go up on the mountain, come back down, figure out what God wants us to hear. And sometimes that's direction. A lot of times that's sermons and weekend series. And so I think that's fine if that's the type of disengagement. And then your second chair leader or leaders, your executive pastor, or pastors are pulling you in at very key and very strategic times. Say, hey, we really need you to speak to the staff on this, or we really need you to kind of roll out the vision in this way. And they're able to tap into that, kind of pull you into things when they need you to engage. But other than that, it's like they got it, they got it. And I think that can be very healthy.
Mhm. And the key there is clarity, right? Like if that's clear, what doesn't work is if the staff has an expectation of that leader that's very different from what, and maybe even the senior pastor and I'm making assumptions here, but senior pastor and executive pastor, they've aligned on that, but the rest of the staff is still they're like, why is our senior pastor not in all of our staff meetings? And why is he not, leading our strategic planning sessions? And why am I not able to meet one-on-one with him? And because it hasn't been stated to the rest of the staff that, hey, this is the job description of our senior pastor teaching, spiritual guidance, like all the things you just named. And here is the job description of our executive pastor. So you're going to see this from me. That expectation setting is so key to making sure that there's not a disappointment or resentment from the rest of the staff to those senior leaders that it might look different than there was a church staff I was consulting with and the feedback, and this goes on, I hear this both with like the senior pastor where people expect the senior pastor to be more of an executive pastor than they are, and then on the opposite where they expect the executive pastor to be more of a
Mm.
capital P pastor than they really are. And it's like, but he has pastor in his title. Why is he not meeting with me and praying with me? And, or, and then vice versa. Like, why is the senior pastor not leading our strategic planning sessions? And it's just because there's not been a clear job description and then clearly communicated of what to expect from those leaders to the team.
That's a good point. I think clarity. I mean, in almost every problem we help churches solve, especially at the leadership team level or the board level, clarity and trust are a piece of that.
Yes.
It's like usually there's a lack of clarity, and that lack of clarity sometimes it's contributed to then we have a lack of trust because we're stepping on each other's toes and we don't feel empowered, or we don't know what our lane is, or we're getting our hand slapped because we thought that was our lane and it's not our lane. Or there's expectations that people have of us and we're not fulfilling those expectations, but we don't know what they are because we don't have clarity. And
Mhm.
so often it comes down to clarity and trust.
Yes, so true. Someone told me disappointment is the gap between expectations of two different people, right? And that's where clarity can just help bridge that gap.
That's right.
Another thing that came to mind for me, Tim, as you were sharing, is what do we actually mean when we say empowering? Because I think that sometimes the disengaged leader might actually think that they are empowered. Like to them, it's like, I've said this thing and then I'm leaving for 2 weeks, and then they come back and their expectation was that it was completed or that it happened, and the team was like, "Oh, wait, we didn't hear it like that." So, I'm curious to hear from you, like, what do we mean when we say an empowered leader or an empowering leader? One of the things for me is clear goals. I mean, we just said this in clarity, but, like, for if you are especially sitting in that second chair or, like, you would consider yourself an integrator in the organization, I think one of the ways that we can help that leader who might be disengaged, or maybe they don't even mean to be disengaged, is do we have a dashboard of 3 to 5 super simple KPIs? I mean, we're talking basic. This does not need to be a complicated spreadsheet or complicated software. What are 3 to 5 goals? Because what that does is it helps us hold our leadership team accountable to, like, what are we saying yes to? And then when we can give those goals to that next layer of leadership, we're really able to empower them with what winning looks like. But when we just say sweeping generalities and they're left to their own interpretation, then again, I think there's frustrations on both side. And it's like, well, you're disengaged. And it's like, no, I'm empowering you. And but we really haven't empowered the team. So I'm curious if you agree with that, or, what you would say when we mean empowering leader, what that means.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think maybe to expand on that, I think of an empowered leader is you're empowering them not just to do a thing or execute a thing or plan a thing. You are also giving them the decision making authority. So it's not just responsibility; it's also authority. So often, it's like, hey, we got so and so. We want them to run. We want them to like do the men's retreat, and then but we don't really, because we want to make sure that we're involved in the venue, and we want to make sure we're involved in the programming. And we want to make sure that we get to help pick the speaker, and what are the outcomes and what are the next step. Like we really just want them to get stuff done, basically. And that's not an empowering leader. That's someone who just that's a delegating leader. And there's times when that's fine. Oh, you just need to delegate. But when we're talking about an empowering leader, you're giving them the responsibility and the authority, knowing that the decisions they're going to make are not going to be all of the same decisions you would make. You don't swoop back in and change those decisions. Sure, you do a debrief. You do like, hey, help me understand. Like, tell me what you were going after when you kind of planned it that way. And over the long haul, maybe it becomes, it's a different thing next year when we plan it again. But it's not just it's not just the task. It's not just delegating. It's empowering the responsibility with the authority.
Yeah. A practical example that comes to mind for me on that, I was talking to a church recently where they're super high growth situation. I think they've gone from like 5 to 600 to 1,200 in like the last like 2 years or something like that in attendance. And we were talking a lot, as you've heard us talk many times on our podcast, of that shift from the basketball team to the football team. And um, the leader was telling me that there was a little bit of resentment from the kids pastor. And so we started digging into that. And they're like, well, we've got an amazing board. We've got an architect, we've got a general contractor, and we've got a finance guy. And so they've really run our entire building campaign. And so we're about to launch we're building a children's wing. And that immediately, like in my head, I'm going, okay. And so I asked, like, how involved is the children's, like, what an amazing opportunity the children's pastor has to be mentored by. They're like, well, no, they're running the whole thing. And it's like, okay, right there. And that's what you're talking about, of like, we are creating doers of like, hey, we're doing the thing as an elder board, and you guys are just, now we'll gift you this wing that you now get to go run your ministry in, rather than an empowering leader or empowering leadership would be like, wow, we've got all this knowledge and experience. What a great opportunity for us to bring this kids pastor along in the journey
Mm.
with us, to lead this, and we just get to mentor and guide and help make sure that we're not running into mistakes along the way. But I think that's a practical example of what that looks like to be an empowering leader. So anyway, it's easier said than done. These are hard things to to shift our behavior in.
And it goes back to clarity, because there
Yes.
are, as a leader, it's not going to always be, I'm giving you responsibility and authority. There will be times when as a leader, I'm making a decision. There'll be times when I'm making a decision, but I want your input. There'll be times when, hey, let's make this decision together. There'll be times when, Holly, I want you to make the decision, but I want to give you some input. And there'll be other times when it's like, you just do it, just get it done. Like you got all the responsibility and all the authority. Wherever you land is great. And so the clarity of knowing what kind of conversation are we having right now, what kind of decision is this, is super important.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, hope that was helpful to you today. Maybe you're self reflecting and you're going, okay, what type of leader have I been? Have I been disengaged or have I been empowering? To kind of plot yourself on that spectrum. It's definitely more of an art than a science, but I think starting with the self awareness, then maybe even to go a little bit broader and go, okay, as a leadership team, are we disengaged in a negative way where we're apathetic and we're frustrating our team? Or are we empowering where we're not as available as we used to be, but our team is, that next layer of leadership is really blowing and going and making moves and moving our mission forward? And then you might have folks on your team that are coming to mind, or you're like, oh man, I need to have a conversation with them because they're really disengaged and not empowering. So hopefully this conversation has been helpful to you, inspire you to work on yourself or have some hard conversations with those on your team as you lead smarter, right, Tim?
Good conversation. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you ready for our fun segment?
Always.
All right. If you had to get up in an hour and give a talk, a lead like talk, I'm going to say leadership talk, but it doesn't, however you want to define that. What would it be?
Okay. So you have tapped into one of the biggest fears of an Enneagram 5, which I
Your
think you did
your
on
eyes
purpose.
literally got big when I asked you that question.
Because our fear is being unprepared. So I would absolutely, 20 years ago, that would have freaked me out and I would have no answer for that. Now I would, I've got I can pull it from my phone or my iPad or my laptop. I can pull some talking points from 20 different talks and probably be able to do it. But I'm not coming if they said in an hour and I want it to be on such and such a topic that I hadn't talked about before, it'd be like, that's not happening.
Mhm.
I would
Okay,
maybe,
so
yeah.
what would the topic be? You get to choose. The topic is not, being prescribed to you. You get to choose.
I would probably, just because it's top of mind right now, I'd probably talk about healthy leadership teams and what are some components of a healthy leadership team? What are some components and examples of unhealthy leadership teams? And how do we, wherever we're at in that, how do we build more health into our leadership teams?
Yeah. That's great. That's a great one. And you would
Yeah.
crush it.
What would you do?
Mine would be around, I'm saying strategic planning. I still feel like strategic planning is not quite the right word, but it'd be my ready framework that I have. So moving vision to action.
Yeah.
And I would get up there and talk about my 5 stages and it'd be awesome. And I would be so excited to do it.
I also feel like in that moment that request came to you and to me, I would have big eyes and my heart would start palpitating and you would be so excited and be like, let's do it. Let's
Yep.
go.
And I also would probably be like, "Give me a topic," because it's so fun for me to
Oh my word.
try to and you would be like, "No." So here's the difference. The reason why I'm having fun with this question is because Tim and I will be at Exponential this week, which by the time you hear this, Exponential will be over. But you're doing a session on Tuesday, which you probably felt ready for that by what day? Like Friday?
It's a talk I've
Like,
done before, so I went through it again yesterday, and just made sure all the slides and everything looks good. Yeah.
yeah, mine's on Wednesday. Haven't even started yet.
I was asking you last night, yeah, about a session that we're doing together, and, I'm like, "Do you want me to run point? Because if so, I need to start working on that, getting an outline together." And you're like, "No, I got
Mhm.
it." And
Yep.
by that, it means you'll figure it out like an hour before.
No, that one's really easy though, because I've heard you like we've been in the same room around this topic for, I
Yeah,
mean, at least a dozen times. So I feel very confident in that one. And
that's
I do
true.
feel confident in even though I don't have my slides um done, I know like it's one I've done before. I just need to update it for the latest data. So I feel good about it. But yeah, that's the difference between me and you. I'll probably be up till midnight the night before tweaking my slides, and you'll be sleeping well because you had yours done 4 days ahead of time. So
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong.
all right, everybody. Well, head on over to leadingsmart.com. Make sure you are subscribed. I ran into somebody this week who listens to our podcast but didn't realize that we send out a weekly email. And so, not because you need another email in your inbox, but because in that email is a like our show notes and what we're talking about that week on the podcast. Also, any updates about resources that we're doing or events like our gatherings that we are doing. We have officially launched registration for our gathering of churches that are 10,000 and above in attendance. We have a fall gathering. You can learn about that at leadingsmart.com. Click on gatherings. And then we have our resource that accompanies this season in celebration of the life of Tony Morgan and Tim Stevens and Tony's work together in the Simply Strategic show, the anniversary edition. You can download that ebook, and inside that ebook, you can click through and listen to all of the episodes from the Simply Strategic show. Anything I missed, Tim?
I don't think so. I think that's good. Well, we're a few weeks, probably 2 months away from announcing our dates and locations for our gatherings next year, but by June 1st at the latest, we'll open up registrations for those.
Yeah, can't wait. All right, have a good week. I'll see you in a couple days. No, I'll see you tomorrow, Tim.
See you
A couple
tomorrow.
days, aka tomorrow.
Yes. All right.
Bye.